now as Kayla Cox, for those of you who don't know me. I've lost 80 pounds and kept it off with intermittent fasting, mostly through Omad, 1 meal a day. I eat whatever I want. I don't cut carbs. I don't count calories. I am the author of the Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting, which is available on Amazon. I also have courses available on my website at 6milestosupper.com/courses. A new course was published today called Weight Tracking 101, which takes you on a deep dive into the numbers about how to track, how to interpret what the scale is doing so that you don't get off track with your weight loss. So, on my personal page, but as most of you know, Instagram and Facebook were down like almost all day today. So if you happened to ask your question through that channel, please go ahead and put it in the comment section again, because chances are I did not see it. It is still down for me. Like I said, it's been down pretty much all day, at least since after like 11 o'clock this morning. So just pop it into the chat if you have any questions about intermittent fasting. I walk 6 miles a day. If you have any questions about that kind of thing, weight loss in general, or maintenance. So let's get started. Trish Knott on Instagram said, does stevia mess it up? So intermittent fasting, can you have stevia, during your fasting window? I think is probably what she means specifically. And I think you're fine. I think you can totally use stevia. I've talked to lots of people who continue to use different sweeteners, artificial sweeteners. I know stevia is maybe more of a natural sweetener, right? But still, the big question is, what are your goals with intermittent fasting? My big goal always with intermittent fasting is either weight loss or weight maintenance. I really don't care about anything else. I mean, I want to feel good and everything, but what I mean is some people get really wrapped up in the whole autophagy thing. Autophagy, for people who don't know, is basically like when your body is kind of like eating itself. It's kind of like recycling its cells and stuff. And I don't really, I'm not concerned with that. I want it for the weight loss benefits. So I always focus on that. I don't like worry about like what technically breaks a fast. For example, I have cream in my coffee, but like half and half, which has calories, which some people would say, oh, you can't do that because that has calories, therefore it will break the fast. But again, I don't care about the technical aspect of it because my goal is to lose the weight and keep it off. And so I would suggest with stevia, if that's something you enjoy. I don't personally like stevia or any other artificial kind of sweeteners. They tend to like mess with my stomach really badly. So I don't use them. But I would recommend experiment with it. Like if you love, stevia in your coffee, keep it in there. Do everything else really consistently, right? Like just, stick with not eating in your fasting window and then see what your results are over time. I'd give it like 6 to 8 weeks of really being consistent, see what your results are, and then make a judgment from there. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. Brenda Doris on the YouTube community tab asked, is snacking wrong during the eating window or just overdoing it? I think this is a great question because, and it's not a straightforward answer. My rule for myself always with intermittent fasting was I basically had no rules for the eating window. So there were days where I would eat, snacks during that eating window time. There were other times where I would just have, a meal when it opened and a meal when my window was closing. But I didn't have a hard and fast rule. What intermittent fasting did was it showed me, because as my fasting window got longer, I started to understand that many times when I felt hungry, I was actually not really hungry. What I was feeling truly was bored or stressed, or maybe just tired, and that masqueraded as hunger. So when I started to notice that, my snacking, I was more mindful, I guess, of am I actually hungry, or am I really just bored right now? Like I'm procrastinating. That was one of my favorite techniques, was like well, I don't want to do that thing right now, so I'm going to go have snacks. So once I started realizing I was doing that, I I never had a rule against snacking, but I will always want to be really careful that the reason I'm snacking is because I'm actually hungry, not because I'm, doing like an emotional eating kind of thing. Um, I would say, if you enjoy a snack, because, and if you find that you're truly hungry and you're just having the snack because, your body wants nourishment right then fine. And again, focus on your results. Like if you, are doing your plan and it's like your normal pattern is maybe like lunch and then a snack and then supper, and that's working for you and you're losing weight, then you're doing fine. Don't worry about it. But if you find that maybe, let's say you're at like a 16-8 and you're being really consistent with that 16-8 window, and you find yourself snacking the whole time and your weight just isn't going down, that's when I would say you might want to make a tweak there. You might want to say, like, let me back off on the snacking a little bit, or, let's try to figure out why I'm snacking so much. You could also try uh, really eating, like when your window opens, you could try, like, make sure you sit down and have a meal. If you find you're just snacking and you don't like that you're just snacking, through your entire window, like sit down, have a meal to open with, and that should keep you full until the next meal time. But again, experiment with it and just, notice what the scale's doing and see how you're feeling too. So hopefully that helps you. Ellie Altman on the YouTube community tab said, when you decided you were at your maintenance weight, did you increase your food or kept it the same amount you were eating in order to maintain your weight? Okay, so that's a great question too. I've been playing with this for like, I think almost 6 months now. And I've done it a lot of different ways, and I love maintenance mode. It's probably frustrating for those of you out there who really want to have like a set plan for maintenance. But I like to see how loosey-goosey I can be with it. And I've found that maintenance is really easy. As long as you continue to weigh, and I weigh every day and keep track of my 7-day average. And I try to keep my weight within like a 5-pound range. So like right now I'm trying to keep my average between 140 and 145. And I found that's pretty easy to do. Occasionally it might go to like 146 or so, but then it comes back down. Okay. So the main thing is like, I don't want it to be like creeping up and up and up and then never coming back down. Like I want it to be in that range. And even there, I feel like relaxed because I'm good here. But there are some days so it's kind of tricky because I did a 5-day fast and then we had like Christmas and stuff. So those numbers are kind of all weird, but basically sometimes I'll eat, 2 meals a day. Sometimes I'll eat Omad. I really prefer Omad. And again, I've come back to this realization. I was, just kind of experimenting around just to see like, what do I like to do? Because I don't want to ever do something just for the sake of doing it. Like I have this channel, okay, 6 Miles to Supper. It's in the name, that basically I do Omad. But I don't want to do Omad just because I have this channel, if that makes sense. Like I want to like always be thinking, am I doing this because this is what I enjoy doing and what I feel the best doing, or do I want to try something else? So, for several months I've experimented. Like sometimes I'll have 2 meals, sometimes I'll have 3 meals, just to kind of see. Because I have a theory. My theory is that you can pretty much maintain your weight just eating 3 meals a day. Like if you just said 3 meals a day, no snacks, I think you could maintain. But what I found is I just get so much more done, and I just enjoy the meal more if I just do 1 meal a day. So I really do prefer Omad. So then have I increased the food? No, I don't think so. I think that pretty much the amount of food has stayed pretty much the same. But I think like if I do 2 meals, what I find is I'm not as hungry, right? So like I'm probably eating the same amount. If I do 2 meals, it's going to be 2 smaller meals. If I do Omad, it's going to be one bigger meal. So there you go. I think with maintenance, though, again, it's a time of experimentation, and you get to control it. Like you can, like it once you get down to where you want to be, then you just kind of say, okay, I've got to kind of probably do something similar to what I was doing. I mean, you cannot go back. You cannot go back to eating the way you used to eat, or you will go back to weighing what you used to weigh. But there is some leeway there. I think the main thing is keeping track of your weight, and then just being aware of what you're eating, as far as like, don't just go back to old bad habits like mindlessly eating or emotionally eating. So okay, Ray Krishna on the YouTube community tab said, I've caught a cold and a cough. Do I have to keep my intermittent fasting diet or stop it until I get my health back? Okay, so first of all, I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you what I do in this situation. First of all, be aware that when you have a cold or any kind of sickness, really, your water weight will probably go up, especially if you're prone to like water weight fluctuations. I've noticed that, like allergies, colds, the weight usually fluctuates up by a few pounds, and then after it's done, then it goes back down. But it's just something to be aware of. I always just kept practicing intermittent fasting. I just felt better that way. In fact, like, but I do think you should just follow whatever your body's telling you to do. If you're feeling like, I just really want to take care of myself right now, and I feel like, right now a bowl of chicken noodle soup would do that, then do that. And don't, like, I think it's really, really important that you start, if you're not currently, start treating yourself as nicely as you possibly can, which means, take care of yourself when you're sick. Don't like try to punish yourself or anything. Not that I think intermittent fasting is a punishment, which kind of goes back to what I was saying, is like, I enjoy the way I eat, so I don't change it up, even, if I have a cold or something. I actually just had a cold. It only lasted like a day or so, but I just kept doing what I was doing. So there you go. But again, I'm not a doctor, but take care of yourself. Ray had another question. He said, may I have coffee with creamer and sugar in my feeding window? And I say, yeah, I say go ahead and do it. A lot of people continue to have, some sort of drink with sugar in it, just in their feeding window. I mean, be aware that drinking your calories can be kind of tricky. But I drink some calories because I have cream in my coffee. But I think you'll be fine. Lots of people, I've talked to lots of people who do, cream and sugar in their coffee, in their feeding window. There are people that drink Coke. Okay. So this is, I mean, it's not even just like, just a tablespoon of sugar. And this is like a lot of sugar that they'll have in their drinks. But again, that's something that they enjoy, and they are having it in moderation, and they're still losing weight. I would say keep everything else really consistent, and experiment with it. Try it for 6 to 8 weeks with, having your coffee the way you like it, and see if you're losing weight, and then go from there. But it's always worth an experiment, I think. Okay, one more from Ray. He says, should I count calories for a 24 eating window? I usually count 1,700 daily calories for my 18.6, but at 24, I only have about 1,200 calories. Should I reach 1,700 calories even if I do a 24? Okay, so I don't count calories. So I can't even tell you, like, how many do I normally, I don't know. I eat, I guess, enough at this point to maintain my weight. So, but I would say, well, and another thing about calories is, unless you're being really precise with it, it's also really easy to underestimate your calories. But if you're being really precise with it, I think the main thing to realize is, if you're feeling like you're not eating enough, you should be eating more. And if you're feeling, because I think that you also said that, like, your BMR was 1,700. So what I would say is, if you find that with a 24, you just feel like you can't eat enough calories in that time in order for you to keep feeling really good, like for the rest of the day, and the rest of the next day until the next meal. Then I would say lengthen your window out, because it's really more important to have a window that you can be really consistent with and have results with. Like, you don't have to get to 24, you don't have to get to Omad in order to have results. A lot of people actually prefer like a 16-8, 18-6, because it just fits in better with their lives. So I really wouldn't worry about it. I would go with what is giving you results. So there you go. Dre Fran Smith on the YouTube community tab said, on the average week, how does your meal plan go? By that, I mean, do you eat the same meals weekly over and over, or do your meals vary? Some households eat basically the same meals weekly without much difference. Do you have a larger variety of meals and don't repeat as often? Just wondering, because if your meals are basically the same weekly, you would tend to know about the amount of calories they are, therefore making meal planning simpler and calorie intake easier to determine. Okay, so again, I don't count calories, so I really don't know. I mean, like, even like the meals that we eat over and over again, I have no idea how many calories I'm eating. So I would say overall, our meals are usually the same, but then sometimes different. So I think all families kind of like get into like a rut, right? Where you're just kind of making the same stuff. You got spaghetti on Monday, tacos on Tuesday, and you just kind of go through the week, rice and beans. Lately, I've added more meat to our diet, just because I was starting to feel like, man, we weren't really eating enough meat. And I've previously mentioned, like, I feel like I probably have PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which basically means I have like a couple of really like low, like depressed days out of the month before my period starts. And just one of the things that I kind of thought about my diet was, we haven't been eating a lot of meat lately. And so I thought, might as well up the meat intake. So this past week has been kind of an anomaly. So I was trying to think, like, what's the best way to answer this? Like, over the past week, I think we've had pot roast with mashed potatoes. We had spaghetti with meatballs one night. We had, what do we have tonight? Oh, like this kind of a Chinese ground beef thing, like with the mayploy chili sauce, sweet chili sauce and rice. And I know people are going to be like, you need to eat more vegetables. I know. And, let's see. Can you think of anything else we had, Jay? Rice. Yeah. Oh yeah, like a rice stroganoff. We need to go to the store, basically. But then other other weeks it's different. So I'm trying to get more variety in our lives, but it really just, like, sometimes we'll have like sausage and cabbage, like the turkey sausage and cabbage, and other nights we'll do breakfast for dinner. So I try to vary it, just because I don't want everybody to get bored with what we're eating. So, but again, but okay. So I will say this though, you are hitting upon a good strategy, I think. If you are counting calories, like if that's something that you enjoy doing, but you find it difficult, then, keeping your meals, really the same throughout the week. And if you kind of find that template, like, okay, if I just eat these meals, then it's this many calories. And then I know that I'm going to lose weight doing that, like, if that's your cup of tea, then go for it. I would get bored though. So, but whatever works for you though. 50 Fine Health says, just joined in. Well, hi. How do you stop binging? Okay. So I used to be the type of person who had like no stopping power. Especially like when I got up to my highest weight, it was like getting worse and worse. Like, I would just, like, almost at every meal afterwards, I felt miserable, because I would just eat. Like, I would continue to eat even though I knew I was full. It's just like just eating, probably to fill a void. But so there's, I think, several kind of facets to this, and I'll kind of take you through the different things that intermittent fasting helped me with. And now I have great stopping power. It is rare that I feel like I like way overdid it. I mean, there are occasionally times where it's like I feel like pretty full right now or really full right now. But as far as that miserable feeling, it's been a long time since I've really had that. The biggest thing, I think, was when I told myself, and I meant it, there are no forbidden foods. So, meaning anything I want, I will eat. Anything. Cheesecake, like Oreos, peanut butter M&Ms, any kind of chocolate, any kind of steak, any kind of bread, any kind of pasta. Everything is allowed. Nothing is off limits. I know that sounds crazy, but that was part of the madness for me was like feeling like because I was overweight, I wasn't allowed to enjoy a donut. I wasn't allowed to have a chocolate chip cookie guilt-free. But when I just said, I'm going to figure out this weight loss thing and I'm going to eat all the food, it's all allowed, and I'm going to figure this out. It was like suddenly the food that used to like seem so tempting and so amazing just kind of lost its luster. I still enjoy, like sweets and all that stuff, but it's different. It's very, very different now. Like I can walk through the store and like be trying to find something to buy for dessert and just kind of think, like it's just like not a big deal to me anymore. So that's the first thing, no forbidden foods. The second thing was learning how often I was emotionally eating. And again, that goes back to with intermittent fasting, it put this time boundary around food. And so there was this clear cut, like, you will not eat right now. And there were so many times where I would just like start to feel hungry for no apparent reason. And because I could not eat, I had to figure it out. Like, why am I feeling hungry right now? Because it would just kind of be out of the blue. And I started to realize, I was stressed. I started to realize that sometimes I was just tired. And so learning how to start to take control of those things, like actually start taking action on the thing that was stressing me out, as opposed to just going and eating my feelings, basically. That was really helpful. And then because I was sticking with intermittent fasting, and being really consistent with it, I was dropping weight, right? So I was being successful with weight loss. And since I was being successful with it, I started to get more confident in my plan and with my eating. And I started to realize I can eat all the foods. Like I can eat cheesecake. Like that's okay because I'm getting down to a healthy weight. And it just changed in my mind, like my attitude towards food, and that kind of power it had over me. It's like flipped now. Like I did a 5-day fast, like I mentioned earlier, and it was like no big thing. And like when you can sit there and fast for 5 days, you really start to realize like you have self-control. Not that I'm advocating people just go out and do a 5-day fast. Like you should talk to your doctor and all that good stuff. But hopefully that helps you. Leslie Pearson, but I will say that wasn't like a switch that flipped overnight. That was a whole process. Okay, it took eating the foods that I told myself were allowed, and then not beating myself up and making myself feel guilty for having the chocolate chip cookie or whatever the thing was. So there you go. Okay, Leslie Pearson said, do you think it's a good idea to do a 2 or 3 day fast first to kickstart the Omad lifestyle? No. I mean, okay, I will say you should do it however you want to do it, but weight loss is a marathon, not a sprint. And for example, when I was losing weight, when I was obese, when I went from obese down to almost a normal weight, I lost at about a pound a week. That was my rate of weight loss, a pound a week. When I got down into a normal BMI, I lost at a rate of 1/3 of a pound a week. So like what I think can happen, I'm not saying this will happen to you if you try it and all that, is if you do a thing that's kind of extreme to try to get fast results, then the regular results start to seem not good enough, or they can. And I think it's really important to learn to become very patient with weight loss, and patient with weight loss, and then patience, because when you're maintaining, that takes patience too. And so, like, the idea of kickstart and all that kind of thing, I would say just do the thing that you can stick with. Be sustainable with your plan. I've I understand, that, like a 2 or 3 day fast, it can have good benefits, as far as like it can kind of like change your mind about food. But again, I've seen it happen too often where people kind of like start relying on those longer fasts as like this. They won't be consistent with Omad. And I would even say, don't even go straight to Omad. Like, start out with a short fasting window and work your way up really gradually. That's how I did it. I see a lot of people jump into Omad. Some people can do it with no problems at all. And if you're that type of person, great. But I also see a lot of other people just jump directly into Omad, and then it's like, it's too much of a change. Like, they're thinking it's really hard, because it is pretty hard to go from 5 to 6 meals a day down to 1. But if you get there really gradually, it's really, really easy. So, think marathon, not sprint always. There's a quote by Bruce Lee that is, long-term consistency beats short-term intensity. And that was like just a phrase I said over and over and over to myself the entire time I was losing weight. And I've kept it off too. Like, I was able to lose 80 pounds, and I've kept it off for quite some time now. I mean, the 65-pound initial loss I've kept off for 3 years now, ish. No, let's see, 2 or 3 years. It's 2.5 years at this point, I guess. So, but the point is, and it feels like very little effort, but it's about being patient with it, and not doing the unsustainable thing. So yeah. Chargers8709 says, "Hi Kayla, big fan of intermittent fasting. Awesome. Hey, you've lost 30 pounds and kept it off for a year. That is great. Congratulations. I love to see it when people have lost the weight and kept it off. That's awesome." BVA says, "I'm doing intermittent fasting, but I still have a problem with carbs. I love bread and pastries. So do I. Although I try not to eat carbs at every meal, I still feel I will lose, but not as fast as I would like." Okay, so I don't see a problem, basically. I know carbs get a bad rap lately. That wasn't always the case, but nowadays it's very popular to badmouth carbs and say they're horrible. But I mean, when I look around at nature, it's like carb heaven, right? Like, I mean, look at fruits and vegetables and honey. There's lots of carbs in very natural things. So I just don't have a problem with carbs. And I think, and I mean, and so I kept carbs in. I did not even try to go low carb. I just said, I'm going to eat whatever carbs I want, and I will just focus on what scale's doing. Because I'm more in the calorie is a calorie camp. Now, I've noticed that I feel better if I eat like fat and protein and carbs in a meal, like a very high carb and low everything else kind of meal doesn't do well for an Omad. Like pancakes with syrup, but no butter, no like turkey bacon or anything. I will not feel good the next day. But anyway, so I think if you're doing intermittent fasting and you're having your carbs and everything, don't freak out. Like, don't feel guilty because you're letting yourself eat bread and pastries. In fact, I think that's a really good strategy, because odds are you will eventually go back to eating breads and pastries. Like, if you try to cut those things out, they'll eventually come back in your life. Now, I mean, I know some people are different, but I'm just telling you what I noticed in my own life. I could cut certain things out for the short term, but they eventually come back in. So that's why I said I want to learn how to lose weight while I still keep eating chocolate cake and all the, spaghetti and all the things that normally you would try to say, oh, well, don't eat that while you're trying to lose weight. But yeah, and weight loss, I think, is not very fast, just in general. Some people have quick results by doing unsustainable things. And I would say it's much better to do the slow, steady, sustainable thing that you can keep up for the rest of your life if necessary. So hopefully that helps. Irene Pazderka says, I have been eating Omad for a couple of months and have lost a little. I went on a 30-day fast last year and lost 40 pounds and want to do it again for autophagy and 70 pounds to lose. Thoughts? Okay. Okay, you don't say how much you lost by doing Omad for the past couple of months, but so, and you didn't say on your 30-day fast last year, you said you lost 40 pounds, but you didn't say if you kept it off. Now, you're saying you want to do it for autophagy too. And again, like that much of an extended fast, I would say talk to a doctor first, be under supervision too. That's what I would say. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I don't play one on the internet or anything like that, but just be careful. But if you gained the weight back from the 30-day fast, and look, if you did, don't feel bad because a lot of that is water weight. Someone told me that they heard Dr. Fung say, so this is like third hand, but that basically you could maybe lose a half a pound a day of true weight from fasting. So like that would be maybe you could truly lose 15 pounds on a 30-day, like a true 15 pounds, and the rest of it might be water weight. So, if you're doing it for the autophagy, like maybe the cancer prevention kind of possible benefits from it, I think that's a separate thing from the weight loss. But you said autophagy, and then you also added, and I've got 70 pounds to lose. So I would say from just a purely weight loss perspective, I would not do a 30-day fast for the weight loss. I just wouldn't. Again, because I think it's important to do this sustainable thing that you can stick with for a lifetime. Now, like, I don't know, if you lost the 40 pounds and you kept that whole 40 pounds off last year and, you think that it'll do the same thing this year, you can sit with that and make your own decision. You're an adult. But I would just say, be careful of doing the unsustainable thing. To try to shortcut it. So I don't know that that's what you're trying to do, but I would just say those are my thoughts. You asked for my thoughts, so those are my thoughts. Beta Husseini, maybe. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. What do you do with mentally the aspect of a diet? Constantly thinking of what and when to eat. Okay, so the mental game of like weight loss is a big part of successful weight loss, is getting into the right mindset. So first of all, get busy doing something else besides eating. So like when you're fasting, you need to be busy. Like you need to find new interests. Like don't just sit around and think about food. If you've got time to sit around and think about food, you've got time to go do something else. So like, you could just learn about, like, if you have nothing else to do, like maybe you've got a certain kind of lifestyle where maybe even the housework is taken care of for you. If that's the case, I would say just become interested. Thank you, Jay. Just start to become interested in something else, in other things. And everything can be really interesting. You just have to get curious about it. Like we were out looking at this, we're at a campground and there's like this waterway on the edge of the campground, and we were just watching some boats. And now you could just say, oh, well, that's really boring. But, there was like this logo on the side of the boat. So I looked it up. And then as it turns out, that boat that we were looking at was like an auto carrier. And then I learned a little bit about the company. And so the point is, everything can be interesting. You just kind of have to take an interest in it. I learned that from Zig Ziglar also. So get busy. Organize your house, clean your house, do all the stuff around your house that needs doing. We all have to-do lists that aren't, things are getting procrastinated on. So just do stuff, stay busy. Don't sit around and brood about food. That was Martin Burkhan. He was the blogger that I first learned about intermittent fasting from. And that was a quote. He put it in bold: don't sit around and brood about food. And I mean, it stuck in my head. And so every time I would sit there and start thinking about food, I'd think, okay, I got to get up. I mean, I would get up and get my steps in, or I would get up and clean the house, or I would get up and play with my kids, or I would get up and walk around and watch TV, but I wouldn't sit. I would just walk around, do stuff, learn a new language, read books, draw. There's lots of different things you can do. And also, if you're finding that you're hungry, so in other words, you're not eating enough, then eat more at your meal, or lengthen out your eating window so that you're getting enough food so that you're not miserable. Okay, so I don't want you to be miserable, but so there's a line there. You have to figure out, are you truly hungry or are you just bored, basically. Okay, hopefully that helps you, Vita. Jerry Lamb said, how long did it take you to transition to Omad from a 16-8? Okay, so I was at a 16-8 at about in January, I think. So January, February, March. I can't remember now if it was the beginning of April or the end of April. I think it was the beginning of April when I got to Omad. So that was about probably 3 months. Now, I accidentally got to Omad. The stomach bug went through our house. I was terrified that I was going to get it. So I could not make myself eat until supper time. I was like, I've got to eat something. I've got to make myself eat something. And so after I did that for a few days, I never got sick, but I did that for a few days. And then I realized hey, I wonder if this is something I can do just all the time. So I looked up, apparently there was this thing called Omad. I was like, oh, well, I guess I can do it. And so that transition, though, I was probably at a 24 because I had been lengthening out my window gradually. So probably by March, I was at a 24, and then I just jumped from a 24 to Omad. But it took me a year of messing with intermittent fasting before I could even get to a consistent 16-8. Mainly that was because I was nervous about being a woman and intermittent fasting. But once I finally read something, I think by Dr. Fung about women can fast too, and they don't have to keep a really short fasting window, then I took that as permission to go ahead and do intermittent fasting the way I really wanted to do it. Okay. Piper Dake says, I'm 16 and I weigh 260. I started dieting and exercising yesterday. Well, congratulations. Do you know any ways to lose weight fast? I've talked to my doctor. Trust me. My doctor just told me to stop eating so much and write down what I eat. He never told me any exercises to do or what to eat. Okay. So first of all, congratulations for taking control of your weight now. Your 20-year-old self will thank you and beyond. Okay. Don't be in a hurry. Okay. This is not a sprint. It is a marathon. Weight loss and weight maintenance are kind of a lifelong thing. I mean, now you're 16, so you're on top of it right now because you're going to get this under control, and then you're not going to have all these bad habits that some of us have. Because I dieted the whole time I was growing up. And so I was on lots of diets. I took diet pills. I was, it was not good, basically. So the best way I found, okay, because I've done pretty much every diet, but the best way I've ever found to lose weight is with intermittent fasting. I would say, again, as long as your doctor is on board with you losing weight and everything, I would say start out with a fasting window that is as long as you can do it consistently. Okay. So even if that's an 8-hour fasting window, even if you're going to like say, okay, I stopped and this is what I did. So this isn't silly. This is what I did. I said, okay, I'm not going to eat past 10 p.m. and I won't have breakfast until at least 6 a.m. Okay. And then I pushed out my window a little bit further. I made breakfast later and later in the day. And then eventually I got to the point where I wasn't eating breakfast anymore. I was just having lunch. I was having lunch and then supper, basically. And then I pushed it out until eventually I got to 1 meal a day. I would suggest that you just start getting consistent with your fasting window. Whatever window you can be consistent with, weigh every day, log that number, and keep track of your 7-day average. Now, there are a couple of apps that will track this for you. On iOS, there's one called Happy Scale, and on Android, there's one called Libra. I think it's called Libra Weight Management, but it'll average your numbers for you. I also have a spreadsheet, a weight tracking spreadsheet where you can put in your numbers if you prefer spreadsheets. But your 7-day average, how it moves over 6 to 8 weeks of time. Okay, because anything shorter than that, you're a female, and your hormonal cycles are going to make it so your weight is going to be fluctuating. Okay, throughout the month, it will fluctuate. Your water weight, if you're like me, your water weight's going to do crazy things from time to time. So that 7-day average will keep you sane. Okay, so because it'll give you a better picture of what your weight is actually doing. Normal weight can fluctuate like 5 pounds in a week. Okay, so your highest day, like in a given week, my weight has fluctuated by as much as 8 pounds. Okay, from the lowest weight, let's say, one day it might be 200 and another day it might be 208. Okay, so it could really vary. It still really varies by a lot sometimes. So keep track of your 7-day average. Pay attention to what it's doing over 6 to 8 weeks of time, and just be really consistent with your plan. Weight loss, 1 pound to 2 pounds a week is achievable, but it takes a lot of consistency. Anything more than that is probably not sustainable. Some people will drop a lot of weight, like when they first start out. Like it just like making any little change. Some people are like this, not everybody. Okay. Some people won't drop any for the first like month of being consistent, but it's an individual thing. But what will happen with some people is they'll drop a lot of weight that first week or so, and then they'll get so addicted to that first big weight drop that they'll think they're doing something wrong if the weight doesn't continue to drop off like that. But I'm just preparing you. Think in terms of 1 pound a week is excellent. 2 pounds a week, I mean, like do backflips if you're the type of person that can lose 2 pounds a week consistently, because that's really good. I know that other numbers float around out there. People love to be really vocal when they've dropped 5 pounds in a week, and then they clam right up when they've not lost any for the past 5 weeks. Okay, so just so you know what to expect. As far as exercising, the eating side of the equation is going to be more important. But I would recommend just walking. Just walk for now. Because I mean, I don't know where you're at physically, like as far as like, well, what do you feel like you can do? You should really do whatever you feel like you can do. And right now, if you feel like you simply can't exercise, that's okay too. Just focus on the eating side of the equation. Several people I've interviewed. I've got an interview. I just did it, but it's not going to be live probably for another week or so. Chris Wyatt. He also didn't really do exercise until he was further along the weight loss journey. Jim Caldwell with Beating Obesity. He's another great one. He did not exercise at all in the first part of his weight loss journey. I can't remember with Joe Holman whether he did or not. But anyway, I have these intermittent fasting success stories, interviews that I've done. And there are lots of people who have done no exercise at all, especially in the first part, and they've still been successful. So, but walking, like I walk 6 miles a day, but if, like if you feel like you could get out there and do, a couple of thousand steps to start and just be consistent with that and work your way up, I think you'll find that it improves your mood, like getting out and doing some sort of movement. But start where you are and with, do what you can, okay? Don't be in a hurry though. And I hope you'll keep me updated on how it goes for you. Okay, Debbie Young, isn't it hard to get back on track after your cheat day? No, it's really not. I don't find that it is. And I think here's why. I told myself, like, it was like cheat day was a day, just a day off, okay? And so it helped keep me really consistent. Because I consistently take a cheat day when I feel like I've been good or anything. It's just like, that is just part of the routine. I've put myself on autopilot. Like, cheat day is on Sunday, and then Monday I get right back on plan. I don't think about it. I don't debate with myself, like, do I feel like getting back on plan? It's just, no, I get back on plan. I'm committed to the plan. And so I've never really found it hard to get back on plan. Now, I have found that you do experience more hunger usually on cheat day, but the day after cheat day. But other than that, I've never found it like, now I got to get back on plan. You know why? Another thing is, I find it so easy. Like, I find Omad, the fact that I eat whatever I want, I think that's a big key here. I think what happens with some people is they restrict certain foods until cheat day. And then on cheat day, they finally let themselves have those foods. But then on Monday, they're like, oh, but you can't have that anymore. And you're wanting that food. So then it's like hard to get back on plan. So I would say if you're finding it hard to get back on plan, your plan may be too hard. Anon but Anon says, hi, Kayla. Hey, Kim. What time of day do you prefer to get your walking in? I like doing exercise 2 hours before bed. Helps you sleep. Hey, that's neat that it helps you sleep. What time of day do I prefer? Well, it depends. Where am I? If I'm in Florida, I want to get them in before the sun comes up or after the sun goes down, because man, it gets hot down there in the summer. Lately, I've really enjoyed getting them in the afternoon. Like, I get all of my work done in the morning, and then by the afternoon, my brain is ready for a break. And so then we go do our walking before supper. I've done it other ways. Like, I really enjoy walking after supper. I feel like it helps with my digestion. Lately, that has just not been a thing that gets accomplished, though. So I just get them in before supper. But now when the days are getting longer, it might be that I go back to walking some after dinner. But, other times I've done it in the morning. I feel like I'm more productive if I work in the morning, though. And then by the afternoon, my brain's just kind of done. So then I just go walk. So Chargers 8709 asked, how did you find out about intermittent fasting? Originally, it was from Martin Burkhand's blog called Lean Gains. I think I found Lean Gains because I was... Why? I don't know. I don't know how I initially found that. I was trying to figure out ways to lose weight. I also, around that same time, found Nerd Fitness, I believe. I'm kind of a nerd, so that appealed to me. And let's see. And so then over time, I found out about Dr. Jason Fung. Also, like Omad, I just Googled eat one meal, like, is it okay to eat 1 meal a day? And I saw this thing about Omad. I didn't even know it stood for 1 meal a day. I thought it meant like nomad without the N. I didn't know. I think on the way the website had said it, they didn't like capitalize all the letters or something. But anyway, that's how I found out about it, just through the internet. Tiffany C says, just starting 16/8 and having a hard time controlling what I eat in my window. Any good meal plans or suggestions on how to break up my meals? I don't have a meal plan. I like to just eat whatever I want, whatever I'm craving. I've found that's just the best way for me, because then I don't ever feel restricted. I never feel like I'm going to rebel against the plan. If you're having a hard time controlling what you eat, like, I would say maybe you're trying to restrict too much. Just give yourself what you want, and you'll probably find that you have control again. That's been my experience. And then I would also focus on, eating enough in your meal. That's another thing. Sometimes people try to eat really tiny portions and they're just not eating enough. Brian and Marilyn Hine says, what about loose skin after dramatic weight loss? I can't really help with that. I was scared of that. I really thought, what if I lose the weight and then my body looks worse? But I don't think my body looks worse. I'm really happy with the way my body looks now. Yes, I have stretch marks. Yes, I have some loose skin. Yes, I still have fat on my stomach, but I'm happy with it. But here's the deal that I made with myself. I said, and I think it also helped that I lost at a rate of about 1 pound a week, for the bulk of it. Because then I guess maybe my skin had time to kind of, I don't know, like it wasn't so dramatic. So then the loose skin wasn't so dramatic. Because my understanding is, over time it kind of works itself out a bit. But with perhaps, if you lose a lot more than 80 pounds, you may have some loose skin to deal with. Surgery, I always told myself if I needed the surgery to get rid of loose skin, I would totally do that, because I feel like it's very important to be okay with your body. And if there is something physically like that you really physically should, because I know that there are health concerns if you have too much loose skin. I would say talk to your doctor, and they can tell you about your options. But it was one of those things I was so worried about, so nervous about, and it never came to fruition. And I'm glad that I lost the weight. So, Mimi Masungo said, "Hi Kayla, what time do you eat on Omad? Walk miles. We're friends on Fitbit too." Oh, cool. Thanks for being my friend on Fitbit. So I eat my Omad about 6:30. Lately, I've been walking my miles around 2 o'clock, 2 or 3. And it takes about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Kind of depends on how often we need to stop, check on the kids with their homeschooling and all that good stuff. Stem S509 says, "Hi, what time of the day do you have your meal for the day?" Well, 6:30. I'm finding it hard to pick a time of the day that works best. Keep experimenting with it. You may find that there's, one perfect time. Depending on your life, though, and your schedule, it might be that, on certain days, one time works better, and on other days, another time works better. Just remain open and experimental. There's no wrong way to do this. There's lots of perfectly good ways to do this. Or if you're finding it hard in other ways, like maybe try lengthening your window out. It doesn't have to be OMAD. Intermittent fasting works really well, like 16-8, 18-6. Just figure out what works for you. Jack K. Been doing OMAD and loving it, but I'm worried about slowing my metabolism, so that if I ever switch to a more intermittent fasting, it wouldn't take much for me to start gaining again. Okay, so I used to be so nervous about that too. Like, it was just like, this thing in my mind. I thought, oh man, but what if I'm screwing up my metabolism? Of course, I was obese. So like, what good was my metabolism doing me, really? I was so concerned with that. But I was obese. So obviously my metabolism wasn't that fast or whatever, The point is, as you lose weight, your metabolism will slow down by definition, because it's really based on, how much body weight you have and that you're moving around. When you have more body weight that you're moving around, your metabolism is going to be a bit higher. But I've been doing it for years. Stanley McChrystal's been doing it for decades. And he's fit as a fiddle. I can't say that I'm fit as a fiddle, but he is. And he was like the commanding officer for the Special Joint Forces, and he's awesome. So I wouldn't worry about it. And he does OMAD. Okay. So I can tell you, I've lost at this point. I've been doing intermittent fasting since late 2014 was when I started experimenting with it. So that's a good 15, 16, 17, 18, 4 years. I feel great. I feel like my metabolism is better now than when I started out, because and here's why I say that. I never had my metabolism tested, but when I was overweight, I was cold all the time. I was lethargic all the time. I wanted to sleep all the time. And now that I am down to a normal weight, I feel good. I usually feel warm as opposed to cold. I have lots of energy. I don't gain weight easily. Like I said, I've been able to maintain this within like a 5-pound range with what feels like very little effort. And that isn't just by eating Omad. That's by sometimes eating 2 meals a day, sometimes 3. It just kind of like going with the flow. So maybe that helps you. But I'm not a doctor, so I can only tell you my experience. BVA says, Kayla, can we change the term for cheat day to splurge day? Cheat day has a negative connotation. Well, I feel like splurge is also kind of negative too. I only use that term only because I feel like it's a universal thing that people understand. When you say cheat day, people know. If I was going to use any term that I just preferred, I would say my day off from fasting, because that's what it is. Like it's not a day where I go hog wild and just eat and eat and eat all day long. Like I just eat whenever I want during the day. But it's not like I eat like a ton of food. It's just a day to just not fast. So yeah. But I know, yeah, so some people think of it as a negative thing, but again, it's just for clarity. Nancy Fry Hover says, do you check your blood sugars? No. I had to cut carbs because they were getting high. I was diagnosed pre-diabetic a year ago. I'm doing 2-med keto for now. Hope to correct it. Yeah, I don't test it. Back when I was pregnant with my 3rd baby, I was probably at my heaviest back then. My fasting number was like one number too high. It was like a 90, I think. And so I had to check my blood sugars for the rest of the pregnancy, which was horrible, horrible. I hated it. I was so stressed out during that pregnancy, but I said that to say this, my numbers were completely normal even after that. Even once I started tracking them, my numbers were completely fine. So I think it was just like I was just nervous on the day of the test, and I was also a little sick that day too. But I don't check them. No, I don't. I don't feel that there's a need to either. If there's ever a problem, I would certainly do it, but I don't have that problem, so I'm not going to do it. So, all right. I think we got all the questions. Thank you guys for joining us. We are almost out of time. Also, just to remind you, we do have the podcast. It comes out a new episode every Tuesday. It's available everywhere podcasts are. It's even on Spotify, iTunes, all your favorite podcast apps. And a new video is out every Monday here on YouTube. The most recent one was about, my mind just blanked. Oh man, overeating, intermittent fasting and overeating. So if you missed that one, you can go check that one out. And I do, huh?
There's a new comment.
There's a new comment. Kathy Est says, my 7-day average is showing a gain of 0.06, but not giving up. Thanks for all your help. Okay, 0.06 is nothing to worry about. Like, look at your number over 6 to 8 weeks period of time. Look at how it's moving over time. Okay, don't worry about the 0.06 is like nothing. Like it's really quite okay. You're fine. Don't freak out about that kind of a little bit of a up. Okay, weight fluctuates by a lot. Joanne Baletka said, what do you do in your closed group? So the closed group is a portion of my Slow and Steady Success Academy. So in that group, I do a weekly Facebook live, which is like a group coaching session. I talk about, different challenges people in the group are facing. I'm in there to answer questions. We do 30-day challenges to institute good habits into our lives. And people are there to support each other, to share about their journey and that kind of thing. And then, of course, in the academy, there are courses. A new course is added about once a month. That's my goal, is to always have a new course each month. And so, of course, everybody has access to that same information so that everybody's on the same page. So that is what that is for. Okay, so I will see you guys next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time now. And thanks for joining. And I hope to see you next week.